And I'm hoping this doesn't decide to die on me again. I don't know why it does that, but it does. Okay, here we go. So we're going to talk about we're going to discuss the equip questions that you've just answered for chapter 3, numbers 1 through 5. So what's so important about Einstein's discovery of general relativity? Why is that important? Yes, Aubrey.
Well, from the book word for it says because it means the universe was not eternal but had a beginning.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, it proves that the universe had a beginning. It is not eternal. It has not always been. There was a time when the universe was not. Now, Einstein wasn't happy about that, nor were any of the atheists happy about that, but they couldn't ignore the science. So, question 2, what are some proofs in support of general relativity? What are some supports for general relativity? Yes, thank you.
Well, yesterday we read about the guy who was like the telescope was named after him, but he confirmed that the world was expanding, which means the world isn't static. So it's constantly changing. And since the world is changing, it has to have had like a start. And so like without nothing happens without reason, meaning that there had to be a creator. Because it contradicts the law of our world is.
Yeah. If it's moving, right, and if it's moving in a certain direction, then you know that it's come from somewhere, right? Everybody look. I don't want anyone to get hurt. Okay, you ready? I told you, right? So that doesn't just happen.
Wait,
right? Yeah. Maybe one at a time. What's the short side? Oh my word! How old am I? Oh, that was a good one. What?
Oh,
No, that's not working. That's not gonna work.
When I play shortstop, I got that hit bus.
I need a glove and I need a ball.
Please.
Okay, ready? I almost got that one. Why is it?
I will give you a good
Ever, Josh. That was a horrible.
Boom.
It like bounced
First try.
for you again.
First try.
Oh yeah.
First try.
But if we had, we did have it on tape, which is really embarrassing. But if we did this tape backwards, right? What just happened, we'd see it go back from Olivia to me. And so that shows that the universe had a beginning. There was a time when the universe was not, and so it is not eternal. It has not always been. So,
inverted by what happened.
what did you say?
Sorry, it was a Kamala Harris quote. I just thought it was
Let's not do politics. Please.
Let's be inverted.
I say that.
I was a social studies teacher. I'm not anymore, so we're not doing the politics. Okay, so it proved that the universe is not eternal, but rather had a beginning. Question 2. What are some proofs in support of general relativity? Oh, we did that, but we didn't do all of it.
I think we did all of it.
There's several answers to it. Think about think about things outside of general relativity that confirmed general relativity. Yes.
I mean, if the world didn't have a beginning, then there wasn't a cause, and then the law of causality would.
Right. The law of causality backs that up. But who else did things to prove that Einstein got it right?
I know you're talking about, but I do not know.
Well, I can provide the name if you can.
Isn't it Eddington?
Yeah, Eddington. What did Eddington do?
His experiment with the solar eclipse showed that the universe wasn't static but had a beginning because it was continuously growing.
Yes. So Eddington's experiment during a solar eclipse showed that general relativity was correct, that the universe had a beginning. Okay, what's another one?
I just had Eddington.
There's another one.
There's two more.
Oh. Oh.
Wait, can you repeat the question?
It's number 3.
What are
number
some
2.
proofs in support of general relativity
Tag, you're it, Caleb.
that show that Einstein got it right? You're going to have to read closely, and you're going to have to give me precise answers.
Number 2. Oh my gosh.
What are some proofs in support of general relativity? We talked about Eddington's experiment of a solar eclipse. There are other
Well, wasn't it Einstein's?
well, yeah, his mathematical calculations, but his mathematical calculations were also backed up by other scientists, and it made sure that those mathematical calculations made sure that Einstein got it right, and even his fudge factor, even his blunder, is more evidence because it didn't work for him to try and make it even.
You can't divide by a 0.
Because you can't divide by 0. Yeah. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say that Alexander Friedman or something exposed
Friedman what?
he exposed Einstein's fudge factor.
Yeah. So that was proof in itself, right? That he found the mistake in Einstein's calculations. And then there was Hubble's telescope from Mount Wilson, and seeing the red shift that meant that the universe was moving in a direction. I don't know if you've ever had one of those confetti cannons, right?
Oh my gosh, I have one in my soft drawer right now.
I have one sitting.
I was supposed to use it on my sister's birthday, surprise birthday, but I forgot.
Oh.
So, maybe I won't use it.
So when you see that confetti come out of that cannon, right, you know that, like, if you could do that in reverse, it would all go back to this single point, right? And that's what Hubble saw in that telescope. And what's interesting, most interesting, at least to me, is that all of these mathematical, scientific observations sound like Genesis, don't they? Yeah. But it can't be if you're an atheist, because there is no God. Even though we see proof of it. Okay, number 3. What was Einstein's goals? What was one of Einstein's goals in his later career, and explain why that was the case? Yes.
Wanted to.
That was not what he wanted. He knew it wasn't. Yes.
He wanted to understand God's reasons.
God's thoughts. Yes.
To know how God created the world.
Yeah, he wanted to know God's thoughts and to know how God created the world. Now, he didn't understand a personal God. He believed in a pantheistic God, a God who is the universe. We'll talk more about pantheism next year. So he didn't believe in a personal God, but it takes a personal God to do this kind of thing. We'll talk about that. You're just going to have to trust me on that for now. We'll talk about that as we go along. So he wanted to know how God created the world and to know God's thought. And then he said anything else is just details. But as I said, he couldn't have gotten to the God of the Bible from his worldview. Number 4, what is the cosmological argument? So I want the definition of the cosmological argument, but I also want you to write out the cosmological argument. So tell me generally, what is the cosmological argument? Yes. Yes, it is the logical argument from the beginning of the universe. Now, there are 2 premises and one I can't even think of the word, but conclusion. That's what I'm thinking. So what is it? What does it say? What does the cosmological argument say? Yes.
Everything that had a beginning had a cause. The universe had a beginning before the universe.
Right. Everything that had a beginning had a cause. The universe had a beginning. And if 1 is true, and if 2 is true, then 3 is necessarily true. Therefore, the universe had a cause. So we've seen that the universe had a beginning. And so everything that had a beginning had a cause. The universe had a beginning. Therefore, the universe had a cause. Now, we're not talking about the God of the Bible yet. We're going to go through that and find out who that cause is. But we're also going to use the logic and the philosophy and the science to find that. Last question, number 5. Write out the logical form of the cosmological argument and explain each premise and conclusion. So we kind of already did that, but what's the first premise? Yes. Everything that had a beginning had a cause. And you understand what a premise is. It's a statement. And it needs to, in order to be valid, it has to be true. So everything that had a beginning had a cause. Is that true? Yes. At least physically. God did not have a cause, but he is outside of space and time. So everything that had a beginning had a cause. The universe had a beginning. Well, we've already adjudicated that. Therefore, the universe had a cause. And so if 1 is true and 2 is true, 3 is necessarily true. And in this case, it is universally believed. But that's the thing I want to tell you, is that even atheistic scientists now believe this. They believe the universe had a beginning, and if the universe had a beginning, it had a cause. They don't believe God is that cause, but they understand that's what the science says. There's only one possible conclusion in this case. So all scientists would agree with that. They would not agree with there being a God, but they would believe with the law of causality and the cosmological. Questions about any of this? Okay, excellent.